have the opportunity. It's kind of more than glad. It's joy, really, for me to be here with you. Travel is interesting, though. I got to tell you that. I was up early this morning to, get here to be with all of you, and feel like I'm always pressing the margins a little bit, But yes, I did make it, and the airline didn't have me pre-selected for my favorite aisle seat. I'm an aisle seat person. And so when they gave me the tickets, the gal said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I really want an aisle seat." She said, "Oh, that's okay. You have aisle seats." And so I told her, God is big in the small and the big. Okay, I kind of gave her that line. God's great in the big and the small. And so it was a little funny. And she kind of looked at me like, one of those. One of those. So I got one of those. I got one of those looks. So today, and then coming over, the gal sitting next to me, which we didn't really hardly say a word for the whole trip, but flying into Spokane. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Oh, you know what? God, isn't that funny? I'm just getting going and forget my microphone. Is this got enough heat on it? So, anyways, okay. So I'm there, and So what comes up? She mentions Kansas City. I say, hey, I've been to Kansas City. I have a whole bunch of friends in Kansas City. I've done some conferences there, and so there. I mentioned they're all Chiefs fans. Okay, and so what is her response? What is her response? I'm a Chiefs fan. So. Shh. Okay. But it was so funny, and then of course the Chargers just lost to the Chiefs, and so it's fresh, right? This fresh wound, and so anyways, we had a little bit of back and forth, and after we were talking a little bit about the teams and all that, it was funny. At the end, I said, "You know what? Had we kind of introduced ourselves earlier, we could have talked this whole trip." And she said, "Oh yeah." So I don't know about you, but it's interesting to meet people that you don't know, just strangers, right? Like people that you just a little touch of connection. I've had some of those in my life where I've been genuinely saddened to say goodbye to that person, knowing I would never, ever see them again. And just the thought of human connection and a relationship. There's something powerful about it. Community, hey, we're here. Community, right? All the connection that is going to happen here during this camp, retreat, mission time. I just think it's a beautiful thing when it happens inside the church. I think it's really glorious when it happens outside the church. And I think that there's something deep and profound and powerful and part of what I have a heart for doing, and really part of what God has given me a role or a niche is to speak to the church along the lines of, how can we do this Great Commission thing better? How do we approach this these days, and especially in a time when we don't have groundswells of people running to the church. And I happen to know from the pre-talk times that the Northwest, and I've been up here to the Northwest, so I know the Northwest at some level. But I'm aware of the challenge that you face here. Kind of looking forward to getting into that. Talking to John, who picked me up. Thank you, John. John Duckworth picked me up, and just really nice to hear a little bit of his reading on things. And John was just filling me in and telling me a little bit, about the area up here and the challenge. And my response was, if he said if you have any, what did he say? And if you have a pill. And I thought, boy, I wish I had a pill, a gospel pill, here, take this and you're going to be effective for the gospel, just take this pill, But, I said, hey, I do not have a wave of the wand. There is no wave of the wand. But I do believe what God revealed to me in my own experiences, in my own engagements. I do believe that was of the Lord to help the church to see how we can be more effective for the gospel. It certainly was for me. It was eye-opening for me. Led to writing, really in a way, it's led to writing 2 books. And lots of content around those books. But I just think there's an opportunity and a challenge for us to step up in some ways, to chart a new course. And that's kind of a challenging thing to hear sometimes, that we need to chart a new course. But I actually believe that the future belongs to the pioneer and to the missional thinker, the missional-hearted Christian who is, receiving, the calling from heaven and knowing that they have a significant role to play and is willing to, roll up their sleeves and get engaged at some levels that maybe they haven't before. So the last thing I wanted to say about travel, though, was that they left my bags in Ontario. Okay, so they're supposed to be bringing them out, making a trip out here. So if anyone shows up out there and they say they got some bags, those are mine. So anyways, but I'm good. It actually, I've done travel both nationally and internationally, and I've had some crazy experiences in that, and some international experiences. I'll share a little bit about some things here in a bit. But some international experiences where, honestly, I actually thought going through the experience taught me something along some spiritual lines that has gone with me for all my days, and that perhaps even has changed my spiritual life. Changed me as a person. Like I went through that, and it's like having gone through that, I'm a different Christian. I'm a different person. And so, anyways, no bags. What did the Lord say? Gary, you don't need any bags. You don't need it. Yeah. You got a whole community of people here, so you don't need any bags. What are you talking about? And I thought it's so true. Why do we think we need so much? Is that true? Why do we think we need so much? We could do better. Simplify, focus. So I am wanting to jump into this conversation about remission, okay? And there's some notes there in there, and believe me, I am not going to follow along that thing perfectly, but the basic structure, yes. And there are also some supplements that are there that have a lot of extra content for people to look at. I will be touching on some of that, but I am not going to sit here and walk through it all. I am not, but I am going to teach some of the major themes of the book, okay? And remission. Okay, well, remission, right? Okay, we need to re-look at mission. But remission is also a medical term, right? And I titled the book with that in mind. I wanted to have a double entendre meaning with the book. And so what am I talking about? Why remission, you know? What does remission mean when you look at it from the the remission and the story, whether I'm looking at I'm going to pull this out. Yeah, whether I am looking at statistics or looking into the eyes of the people I am training, it is clear that we have mass numbers of receptacles, yet few effective representatives. Remission seeks to restore the status and conditioning of church membership as a movement. And like the restoration of someone from illness to health, it is what we are meant to be. So the idea of the health of the body is central to the book. And honestly, I believe that there's an idea in that related to the spiritual formation, picture that we have in our mind, the things that we think about with spiritual formation. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about that idea. And it came to me here recently, my chance to kind of retouch on the book, and I wrote it in 2018. Oh, thank you. 2018, I wrote it, but just this year we had a chance to go on a bucket list family trip, something that we'd promised our kids, and we went off to Greece and also to Italy. And in Italy, had a chance to go to the Uffizi Museum. And in that museum is a piece of art that I really loved. And it's this one. It's by Leonardo da Vinci. And it's called The Adoration of the Magi. And so what happens with this, there's like a story behind this painting, because it's a famous painting, and it's been there in the Uffizi Museum for centuries, and, you know, people have loved it. And so what happened is that the curators of the museum wanted to restore the painting to its original colors. And so they wanted to see if they could do that. So they invited a Florentine man, an art expert, to come and to examine it. His name was Maurizio Saraceni. And so they wanted him to come and to see if it could be restored. And so what does he do? He comes in, they remove the bulletproof glass. He's able to inspect the painting, both technology and just with the naked eye. And he ends up coming back to the curators pretty quickly, telling them that this famous painting is not the work of Leonardo. So you can imagine a shock goes through really the art culture, the art world. Everybody is talking about it. But there were reasons. First of all, Leonardo da Vinci was known for his brushwork. And this art expert looks at the painting and says, this is not up to par with the work of Leonardo da Vinci. But he also, in the examination, notices that there are other factors that have leaned him in this direction, and that is that there's a painting underneath the painting. Okay, there's an underdrawing, and he also, in examining it, notices that the bottom, that underneath painting has been scraped. It's been scratched. And then something else, which is really intriguing, he notices that on the back panel of the painting, there are water patterns, as water has dripped down on the back side of the painting. And so he begins to develop a hypothesis of what might have happened. He says, what if Leonardo comes and presents to the Augustinian monks, here is my version of the adoration of the Magi, and they end up rejecting it. Okay, so how could that have happened? First of all, at the age when this happened, Leonardo was 28 years old, and he was not famous. He becomes famous later in Milan. So what happens is when Leonardo becomes famous, suddenly the painting that he had done, which was rejected, suddenly becomes valuable. And so what do the monks do? They then commission some other artist to go retrieve the painting that had gone into storage and had fallen down flat on its face, and with water dripping from the top down onto the painting. And then they're the ones who pick it up and clean it, right? Scratching the surface of the painting. And then it's given to these lesser artists to take what Leonardo had done and to finish it. So when you go to the Uffizi Museum in Italy, you are going to see not the old painting, but the restored painting, the original artwork of Leonardo da Vinci, because Maurizio Saraceni was able to take infrared images, 2,400 shots, and to piece it all back together so that we actually have the work of Leonardo da Vinci, which included 30 more faces, 30 more. And it also includes a self-portrait of Leonardo da Vinci himself in there. And so, quite a story, huh? Quite a story. But, I found myself loving the story for an ecclesial reason or a biblical reason. I found myself thinking about, wow, look at what happened here. A master artist, a visionary, does a piece of art. And then all that art gets covered up, painted over other people's versions of that master's vision. And it caused me to think, as I open up my Bible just like you do, and look at our master teacher, the Lord Jesus Christ, when I look at his words and study his words carefully, what I come away with is part of what we're dealing with is that we do not have the master's vision for his disciples. Now, I know that might sound a bit strong, but it is fascinating to see the things that Jesus says. And if we are to go through them and to walk through many of these things that he says, he seems to have a real vision. And it's easy for us to lose sight of it or to miss it. One of my favorite verses is John 14:12, which Jesus says, "Whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing." Will do the works I have been doing. And of course, there are so many others, right? We have John 20:21. As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you. I wrote this in remission, trying to, in a way, draw the contrast. Just simple sentence here. Contrary to Christ's example, we have come to define disciple by such criteria as knowledge, behavior, and fellowship, where Jesus saw discipleship as the embodiment of his heart, actions, skills, and fruit. And if you put those two together, and if you take a look at what has happened with churches, with the body, with the level of discipleship growth in the body, we have there's a lot of maturity pieces that are in there. And pastors are faithful to teach and to get wins of growth in their lives of their people. But where I really believe we're falling short, and in some places falling down, is how much we really look like Jesus in his heart for the lost, his manner, the way he goes about relating to others, his sensitivity to others, his ability to expand out into smash barriers of the culture, his ability to get to deep places in his conversations with people, places of the heart, conversations that people left. I'm telling you, if you had a conversation with Jesus and you walked away, guess what? You'd be thinking about the words that he said for the rest of your life. He was powerful and pinpointed. He had an amazing ability to speak into people's lives, into their needs and into their storylines. And when I look at where we are, I feel like there's a big gap. There's a gap of growth. There's a gap. There's a gap. And so part of, what we're going to be doing is talking about that. How do we bridge that gap? How do we fill that gap? Because we have a saying in my ministry, the movement starts with us. The movement starts with us. And you know what? How many people does it take to start a gospel movement? How many people do you think? One. I love it. Yeah, I love it. You're so smart there. I love that. Yeah, you're right. One person. Because you go reach a common woman hanging out at a well, okay? And you take your disciples through that turf and through that area, and they didn't want to go through Samaria. Lord, the Jews, we go around. What do you mean go through here? But you have a conversation, a deep and meaningful, impacting conversation with someone who is outside the faith, and you never know where the gospel's going next. And what did she do? She goes back and she does what? Tells who? Everybody. Tells the whole town. And what does the town do? They all come out. We want to see this guy. We want to see this guy who told you, as she says it over and over again, the one who told me everything I ever did. And I love that. It's a great exaggeration, though, isn't it? Isn't it great? You know, sometimes I think, we're too shy about, our faith. We need to find the words sometimes to help people to see the richness of it, the robustness of it. So what I'd like to do, and I am a professor. I am actually a mission trainer first, a writer and a mission trainer. That is my job. That's my full-time work. I also am an adjunct professor at Talbot Seminary. So for 5 years, I've been teaching evangelism and disciple-making strategies there. And so it's been great. I really love, picture this room, 7 in the classroom, 7, okay? You're thinking, wow, big class. But up on the screen, 17 from all over the world. That's the way that a lot of these classes, these blended hybrid classes, and these schools are recruiting people from all over. So it is interesting. It's an education, not just me teaching. Honestly, I'm learning from them. And if there's going to be a lot of little threads here, but I'll tell you, one big thread is the body needs to learn from the body. And it's also why we need people who are breaking new ground and finding ways to penetrate into different circles in the community, building relationships with people outside the faith, because there's a whole learning curve for us. In fact, there's many people in the church who would love to know, how did you meet all of those unsaved people? How did you get connected with that group? How do you know those people? How did that happen? And let's go to school on each other. Let's learn from each other. Now, one of the assignments that I give there at the school, and when they come in, the first thing I do is congratulate them for signing up for an evangelism class. Because there's a lot of people who are not doing that, okay? So, but yeah, they get the assignment, and you're going to learn more about this. But they are not there just, they're not there just to learn from the instruction of the class. They're there to engage, and right away, they get my relational evangelism process assignment, where they have to get beside an unsaved person. They have to build a relational connection with an unsaved person. Now, these are Masters of Divinity students, so you would expect, right? I mean, you would think, right? I mean, but these Masters of Divinity students, that maturity level, right? So mature from these churches and the aspirations. What do you think? Do you think they have lots of people to reach out to? It's disheartening. It's a disheartening picture. Like, what's going on here? They're scrambling to try to figure out who to get beside. And some of them are, okay, here goes the learning curve. Let's learn how to do this. And so they end up writing on it. I want to tell you, though, since we did that the first year, year one, at the end of the class, I find out there was 14 people in that class. 2 of the students led people to Christ that first week. And I was like, it was my first time teaching. I was total newbie there, you know. I mean, it's like I blundered the whole class. It was terrible. But two people come to faith. And then I did the class again. It was a bigger group, a bigger class. And then at the end, we kind of find out, 2 more came to Christ. 2 more. Do a third class. Get what? 2 more. Do the 4th class. None. I was very disappointed. Lord, what happened? But I was just really thrilled to see the fruit. But you might ask the question, like, why? Why fruit? Okay, so, well, it's relational. They're learning skills in the class. And I'm going to share some things that God has showed me. I'm just going to share some things that God has showed me in real relationships with non-believers from different places. But here's one of the things that happens. This is a school assignment, right? They need to write on this. Their focus goes up. Their energy level goes up, right? They're willing to kind of make the effort. And guess what happens when that effort goes up? We see fruit. It's one of the big challenges that we face. And honestly, I feel like one of the things that one of the things that God has put on my heart is, Gary, how can you help to help a deeper conversation happen about spiritual formation? See, so for me, I happen to really love spiritual formation leaders and who I call the renewalists, okay? So who are renewalists, okay? And what is renewal? What is renewal? Well, renewal, and I think there's a basic concept with in churches amongst leaders. And I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the Chicago River. Are you guys familiar with the history of the Chicago River? You familiar with that? So what happens, and just really quickly, just to tell you, they have sanitation issues. This is the city. The river is toxic. So they bring a guy in from Boston, Ellis Chesworth. Okay, Chesbrough. What does he do? What does Ellis Chesbrough do? He tells them, let's reverse the river. Are you getting that? They're like, what? What do you, no, we can't, what? How does anybody reverse a river? There is a way. They dug the southern end so deep that the water flow ended up reversing, going back the other way down into the depth. And they reversed the river and they sent all that toxic yuck down to St. Louis. That was what they did. And St. Louis sued them. And the court said, no, it's okay. Yeah. So, but here's my point. Spiritual renewalists, which includes almost every Bible teacher in the land, and our spiritual formation leaders. And believe me, we've got some at Talbot, John Coe. Oh, amazing. I just love the guy. And I actually love the spiritual formation content and all that because I really need it. I'm kind of a struggler. So if I'm a struggler, I'm struggling. And I'm like, oh, I need that formation stuff. But those two groups that can be a little bit at odds with each other sometimes, that kind of happens. Those two groups believe something. They believe something. And it's this: spiritual depth is the answer. Spiritual depth is the answer for all godly outcomes of the Christian life. And that is not a terrible thing. Most churches are very focused on the spiritual depth and the spiritual growth of their people. But people like me, mission guys, people who are a little more Sadalic thinking and Sadalic apostolic thinking about, hey, what do we need to be doing? What are we called to be doing? Question that assumption. I do not see the focus on spiritual depth as being sound in the sense of Christ-like formation. What I call mission formation. Mission formation. So what we're going to do, we're going to interact. So you get to get involved here. I'm talking way too much. So I want to invite you to stand up and just share a thought. You can sit if you want. All right, so here is one of the ways that I interact with the students. And if you're a pastor and if you wanted to do this, then I would say ask the question and let them answer it. But what if we had a different Jesus? Okay, let's just hypothesize for a minute. What if we had a different Jesus, one who arrived at the exact same time in history, with all the same settings, but was missing just one character trait? The Missio Dei, the mission of the Father. So Jesus arrives. He is the Son of God. He is the Messiah. Arrives in the same place. Born in Bethlehem. Everything is the same. But he's missing this. So, knowing our Bibles, everybody, right? Knowing our Bibles, what would be different? Yes? He'd be what? Oh, a conqueror. Ooh, interesting. Almost like a whole different route, right? A conqueror. Okay. Yes. Pointless. Okay. Yeah.
He wouldn't have died. He asked the Father to take the cup from him. So it would have been up to him.
If he didn't have that, If he didn't have that, the students ask that too. Would he even gone to the cross, right? I mean, would he have done what he did?
That was the mission.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes.
It wouldn't be the same Jesus, because that's the reason he came, to do the will of the Father.
Okay.
So he's not the same Jesus.
Yeah, but we can still picture him. We can still picture him. I mean, there's still a lot of things that we could see him doing. Where would he be hanging out? Where would he be? Where do you think he would be?
In his basement building boats.
It might be that, but he is the Son of God. He has that knowledge. He still has some ability with teaching and all that. Where do you think he might be hanging out? Okay, church or the temple, right? I mean, couldn't you picture? I'm just picturing Jesus at the temple a lot. But would Jesus make a trip to the Decapolis to cross the sea? Would he be going out to all these other places and having conversations with people, healing people? Would his messaging be the same? All right, so what can we conclude? And you guys kind of were onto it so quick. So I'm going to tell them, you students, you should have gone and be with the ABC group, man. They nailed this thing like in 3 seconds. But what is wrong with a missionless Jesus? But what we could say, everything is wrong, right? Isn't it why he's so awesome? Isn't it why? Think about that. Isn't it incredible what he does? Isn't it amazing the way he expands the whole vision and goes and does things that just, in a way, just like awe us? Well, it's because of this intimate relationship he has with the Father. And in John, and I always said John, the Gospel of John is kind of like the artist of the bunch, isn't he? He seems to see it and the intimacy of Jesus and the Father in a real special way. And John is the one who captures this. You know, the Son does nothing but what the Father is leading him in. So it's this picture of this loving heavenly Father and a shadowing Son. This intimacy, but it's also in the context of mission. When was the last time you talked about the intimacy with God related to the member's mission? Thank you. I appreciate that if you've done that. And I know some of our pastors are on this. But you see, what I want to do, I want to marry spiritual formation and mission. Does everyone get that? I want to marry those two. But I want to tell you, if we're looking at Christ-likeness as being the thing that we're really going after, and being on mission is really a part of Christ-likeness, right? That, if we're serious about that, that requires change in the church. That requires doing some things differently, thinking differently, executing our ministry development differently. But it is part of why I wrote Remission. It's my son. This is my youngest. And so Yeah, we went out. He wanted me to help him change the brakes on his car. And as a good dad, I said, yeah, let's do this. You know, it's one of the things you can teach your kids, how to change the brakes and save some money. Because there's not a lot that we can do mechanically these days on these cars, right? Can we? It's just crazy. But anyway, so, you know, we go out, and so we're having difficulty getting one of the tires off. So what does Dad do? Dad tries to crank it, right, and snaps the lug bolt. So we had to then order a lug bolt. And so then we had a lug bolt that we were trying to get into the rotor, and it had the holes there, and it had a little cap on it. It looked like you hammer that cap. That's what I'm looking at. And so I'm there in the back, and we got this hammer, the big sledgehammer, and we're just trying to pound the thing in, right? We're trying to pound it in from the back. And eventually, Daniel's just like, Dad, it's not working. I give up. And I'm like, I'm not giving up. I am going on to YouTube to find the tutorial. So there I am, go on to YouTube, and I find it. There it is. So this is what I find. And I just said, oh my gosh. It's not pounding it in, it's using a wrench with the bolt on the other, or the nut on the other side, and using the leverage to pull it through. And I'm like, gosh, it's the reverse of what we were thinking. It's the entire opposite. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that's actually a pretty good illustration of the way mission formation happens in people. Pastors up there, man, we gotta pound these people. Pound them, pound them, pound them. The more we pound, more inspiration they get, pound and pound, and boom, 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 boom. And I want to tell you, that is nothing. That just doesn't, it's not really the answer. And part of what we're up against right now in the church is that the mission engagement side of things with people in the community, like right here in the Northwest, irreligious people, people who aren't going to just jump in the first time you toss them a little invitation to come to your church. The difficulty factor is bigger than it's been for a long time. What is actually required in the character of the member, and the skills and the manners and the engagement and the thinking is actually pretty significant. It needs and deserves a whole system of training and support and celebration inside the church. And all of that, what I just talked about, does not happen on the stage in the main service. And I'm not saying that the main service is not important or significant and that pastors can't do some good mission teaching. But if you want to see mission formation happen where people actually learn how to be effectual in influencing someone to Christ and helping them to come into the faith and want to become a disciple, want to follow Jesus, it is going to require something so different. And we have to think about how can we build a system and empower our people and employ people and hire people in some cases, build teams, get a clear vision on how it is we can see this type of growth and development happen in their life, and engage, learn by getting out there and engaging and getting coaching and getting feedback so that everyone can sharpen and so that the church can rise in this time right now. And I know that's stretching and challenging because it is for me. It's challenging for me to get across to my neighbor. My neighbor is a Raiders fan. Is that rough? Is that rough? You know, it's a theological question. Should a Raiders fan be saved, God? And then we're back to Jesus, right? You know, what would Jesus do? Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I wasn't thinking. You can really get yourself in trouble. I like Gardner. Yes. Yeah. So here is like analysis. So this is analysis. If we're really serious about it, if we wanted to remission the church, if we wanted the church, the body, the members to be better equipped, more engaged, more fruitful. And I know none of that is easy. There's no wave of the wand. Building relationships with people outside the church takes work. You have to get at it. But this is the way I would put it together, just in its most like stripped down form. That when I say mission formation, that is the idea that spiritual formation and mission are married. It's, you know, and you have to get to this. We can't have churches where everything is about us gathering and worshiping, which we need to do, receiving teaching, which we need, and being in a small group and fellowshipping, which we need. But the systems of the church are primarily about us and our growth. And they're not about our growth in being Christ-like, the one with the Messiah Dei. You see what I'm saying? The one who is so awesome. I want to see awesome Christians. I want to see Christians out there who are breaking new ground, finding their way into relationships. Everybody is spurred on by what is happening by some. And you can do some mobilization as teams as well. Absolutely. You can mobilize to meet needs in your city. There's all sorts of ways you can do it. But mission formation and spiritual formation are married. A viable approach, an approach that people can do, and that is really, in a way, realistic and natural to their skin. Don't you, I mean, do you really want to go do unnatural things? You know, do you really want to go talk to strangers everywhere? Do you want to go through your community and knock on doors or whatever? I don't want to do any of that. I want to connect with people relationally where God has opened up some opportunities, or where, I learned some things to get myself in position. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into what we call positioning skills. Rarely, it's taught in the Bible. Rarely do I see it taught in the church. Absolutely crucial skills. Skills, plural, skills. How many skills do I use? I use them all. And we'll be talking about a number of them. Combining skills. Combining. Okay, so you want to teach one skill, like one thing. It's like a basketball player. Okay, this guy is really good at shooting the basketball. But he can't dribble, doesn't know how to pass, has never boxed anybody out for a rebound before, but he's a really good shooter. What do you think? Does he make it in the NBA? Nobody out there doing anything in a performance level uses one skill. They're combining skills. We need a combination of skills that are working so that our members understand there's a number of things that they need to be focusing on. They're all important because they work towards the whole, which is leading you to get to the place where you could have spiritual influence with someone. If you don't get positioned like the Ethiopian eunuch on his way, Philip, gets a word. What is the word to Philip? Go to that road. go to that road. Okay, and then what do you do? What's the next thing? Go stand over there by that chariot. And then what's the next command? Stay by the chariot. Stay. And then, okay, the conversation happens. What does he do? He gets up in the chariot. And then what happens next? They're off on a ride. And then what happens next? He's baptized. You see, we don't have the sequences. We want to bypass all the skill here and the development here and the skill that might be needed here and what you need here. We want to bypass it all, and we think then we're going to be making disciples. The only way we're going to be making disciples of those people is if those people are hungry for what we got at church. And the problem is we have too many people who are outside the church and who are not coming. And we need to go get them. We need to learn how to draw them, to evoke interest and intrigue in what it is that we possess. And we can grow in it. Anyone who can build rapport in a relationship with someone can do this. But you do need to learn. All right. I want to talk region here just for a second. So, this is a picture of me in Kenya, training there, and the caption is, "The moment you realize the translator is more dynamic than you." And yes, that did happen. But it's interesting, it's interesting when you look at different areas. I mean, I've been half a dozen times to Africa, and God's given me some opportunities to do some other travel. It's always a learning experience everywhere you go. So I was invited to train in Alaska. And so, see if this connects at all. But yeah, I'm up there and I'm talking to them more and more about the people there, and they're explaining the people who move to Alaska. Like, I want to get up here as high as we can go and as far away from all these people who want to hold me back, And I want to go up there, and there's, God, my gosh, this independent spirit. And so we ended up having quite a bit of conversation about that. But that's a little bit like here too, isn't it? Is it a little bit like the Northwest? Yeah. So we talk about keys. Okay, one of the skills is the gospel key. So we're gonna end up getting into that a little bit, talking about that. What might be the key, regional key, and then of course the gospel key always applies to people's individual needs in that. And so, yeah, I just got back from Guam, and I'm going to close this here in a minute. But it was fascinating being there in Guam. Their issue there in Guam, about 170,000 people on the island, and their issue is primarily that their populace, the high level of their populace, like at 90%, are cultural Catholics. Okay? So, cultural Catholics who think they're just fine. They're just fine. And so when we say cultural, we could use the term cultural Christians as well. Cultural Christians think they're just fine, and they're not. So part of what we were talking about is here, this is a regional key. This is a messaging key. How, let's dive into this. How can you be effective to reaching the people that have that starting point?